Hi, I'm Jacquire and I've been making records professionally for more than 30 years. I've had a fantastic journey and worked with many amazing artists along the way. I've got some tips and tricks I'd like to share with you from behind the scenes of the record making process. I wanted to talk about building and budgeting for a studio space. Obviously, there's a lot of things to buy, but what I wanted to focus on is a few things that get overlooked. While we all get really caught up in the gear that we want to have, having a good set of speakers is essential. That's something that most people kind of think about, but it's a priority. Your speakers is the one thing that you will use all the time. It's number one. Make sure you spend enough money on the right speakers for you. Because a lot of people end up looking at mic pre's and compressors and so forth and so on. Mic pre's, you only use when you're recording, not when you're mixing. Compressor is probably one of the most useful overall tools in terms of like analog gear. There are other things like EQs. You know, if you're mixing in the box and you have hardware inserts where you can use these things. Microphones, something you only use when you're recording. So those are things to keep in mind when you're doing your studio budget. Spend money on the things that you will need to do whatever it is you intend to do, but that you will also get the most use out of. The other aspect I want to talk about is don't forget about the things that aren't as glamorous and cool, that you budget all your money for the microphones and speakers and compressors you want to buy. You need to spend money on the wiring to hook it all up. That's a pretty substantial expense, especially when you look at incorporating a patch bay. If you have multiple pieces of gear and you don't want to be patching microphone cables between them every time you want to hook something together and you want to have a patch bay, well, all those patch points needs to go out to the back of the gear so that it can all be easily interconnected. That stuff gets very expensive, and unless you have the skill set or willing to learn and spend the time to do the soldering, you have to pay somebody to do that or buy it prefabricated. It gets expensive. So wire and interconnectivity of the studio is a huge expense that people overlook. Another thing is a good headphone system and enough headphones to have a session with multiple people involved. You don't want to have to be unhooking and rehooking things up all the time to go from one job to the next. Having a thoughtful interconnectivity of the studio, and that includes instrument cables, having enough instrument cables, spend money on tuners. Tuners seem to disappear and get lost and broken at an extremely high rate. It's phenomenal. Other things to think about are having multiple hard drives so that you have a safety copy of the work that you're doing. Don't rely on it to be on one single hard drive. You need multiple copies and multiple hard drives so that if one hard drive fails or one gets lost or stolen, that you have another copy and all your fantastic work is not lost. Having spare guitar strings, guitar picks, all the little things that if you don't have them, that you basically have to stop the session to go get them or figure out where they are. Maybe you do have some stuff, but you're not keeping it organized. All those things will distract you from the moment and take you out of the creative headspace. So think about the things that are in the background and hook things up and bring things together. All the little elements that you need to be able to do your job well and that they're organized and in a place you can lay your hands on quickly. Those things are the things I want you to think about in building and budgeting for a studio space. Not only does it need to look good and feel good, but it all needs to work together. And there's a lot of elements that don't come to the forefront of our minds when we're putting these spaces together. So consider that, and best of luck with your studio.